Hello, hi, and welcome to another edition of Hughes at 10. Really sorry I'm late. I was trying to sort out my sound issues that I've been having, and my computer crashed, like blue screen of death, and then I had to reinstall the sound drivers, and then it wouldn't let me. So I'm on generic audio at the moment on my laptop, so sorry if the sound's not great. But thank you for hanging around for me. It's 3 minutes late there. It's just not good enough, is it, really? I'm not getting paid for this, in my defense. Oh, good. Stephanie can hear me. Hi, Paul. Hi, Gaz. Hi, Attila. Hi, Elizabeth. So, where do I start? We have Prime Minister's questions today. Keir Starmer brought up some of the issues that I talked about on Monday about these Tory people, husbands and wives of Tory donors, people who are friends with Dominic Cummings, and husbands and wives of Tory MPs being given these huge contracts. And if you listen to Boris Johnson's responses, he just responded the way he always does, which is to say, I don't see anything wrong with that. And then he talks about something completely different and not the question that has been asked of him. And it also came out today or yesterday that one of the companies, so Kate Bingham, is married to Tory MP Jessie something. Or it just might be Jess. I don't know. It hasn't got an I in it. But anyway, his wife, Kate Bingham, gave over £700,000 of taxpayers' money to a PR company to fight anti-vaxxers. They didn't give it to me. I made a wonderful video about anti-vaxxers yesterday, but they didn't give me any money for that. Anyway, turns out that the company that got that 700,000 is run by the business partner of the father-in-law of Dominic Cummings. Anyway, right, so I'm going to quickly move on from the Tories basically stealing all our money and giving it to their mates, as frustrating as that is, because I want to just talk about Jesse Norman. Thanks, Attila. I want to talk about Trump and the fact that he hasn't left, and the fact that Mike Pompeo yesterday was saying we're going to prepare for the second term of Trump's presidency, which I think they are, because as far as I'm concerned, this is a coup, and I should know. I've caused a few of them. No, I haven't really, that's a lie. But I've travelled in enough countries where they have had coups. I spent 3 weeks in Comoros, which is a little island group, 3 islands off the coast of Africa. It's between Africa and Madagascar. And they call it Cloud Cuckoo Land, as in Coop Coop Land, because they had so many coups over the years. And now it looks like it's America's turn to face the consequences of having a really stupid system in which the person in charge is above the law until they're not in charge anymore. And this is what goes wrong in so many presidential democratic systems. This is why if you have a presidency, it should be like the German presidency, and it's always a fun quiz question. What's the name of the German president? And hardly anyone knows. So say, Angela Merkel? And you're like, no, she's the chancellor. Who's the president of Germany? And they're like, well, I don't bloody know. Yeah, exactly. So he does go around opening supermarkets, which is what a president should do. You know, smiling at photo ops and things. That's what you want your president to do. Who's the president of India? It's not Modi, he's the prime minister. Who's the president? Some person, I don't know. But that's a better way of doing it. I'm not defending Modi, by the way. So that's a Hughes at 10 for another day. But yeah, it's concentrating on Trump and the way this has gone down. If you have a system in which someone has a job, and while they have that job, they're free to commit any crime they like, as long as they keep that job. What's the incentive for them to stand down? What's the incentive to just retire and just enjoy the rest of their days on the golf course? there isn't one, because they know they're going to go to jail for their crimes. Look at Idi Amin. He had to run away in exile to Saudi Arabia. Look at Robert Mugabe. He clung on with his little dinosaur claws for until he was 93 years old before finally they got rid of him. And a lot of African dictators and dictators in other places around the world did this. Look at the way that Slobodan Milosevic in former Yugoslavia, he was a monster, but we couldn't touch him until he was out of office. He couldn't be taken to The Hague until he was no longer the leader of Yugoslavia. It's such a stupid system, because it means that people like Putin will change the constitution to make sure that they stay in power forever, for the rest of their lives, or they have some escape mechanism where they can just get out, but they don't go to jail. So that's what they're scared of, because they know they've committed crimes, they know they're going to go to jail. So the defense secretary has been replaced. All the civilian staff that were left in the Pentagon have been replaced, and replaced with Trump Muppets, whatever, interchangeable term, I think. And there's this terrifying situation at the moment in which one guy is trying to protect his immunity from prosecution, because that's all he cares about. He doesn't care about being president. He just cares about not going to jail. So as long as he's president, he can't go to jail for his crimes. In France, there's a law. There's a law in France that says if you are president, you can't be done for the crimes that you commit while in office. It's like, what? Who made up this stupid rule? France is supposed to be the home of the French Revolution, when, no, then I suppose Napoleon came along. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Betty Biscuit's asking me if I've ever heard some of the prank calls. I'm assuming she's talking about the calls where people phoned up the fraud line. Oh, yeah, sorry, David's just said we still phone up the fraud line and record it, yeah. Someone called them up and was saying that there was a massive obese tortoise on his back, which is kind of funny. But yeah, it is just gone to this point now where we have got, yeah, we're in for, Tom, I'm going to just say that. Tom Munker just said, we are in for some excitement nearly 2 months. I said, we've got nearly 2 months of this. And by excitement, I mean, this is like terror. I mean, there was such relief on Saturday. Finally, Trump is on his way out. And now that's been replaced, that fear that we had every single fucking day of Trump's presidency, which I haven't felt as a 41-year-old middle-class white man from Liverpool. I never felt that kind of day-to-day stress put on me by the leaders of the world, if you want to put it that way, since I was a kid. Since the days when I watched Threads and When the Wind Blows and terrifying public safety warning videos about what it's going to be like when they drop the nuclear bomb on people. And that was an existential threat to my existence. And I was aware of it at a very, very early age. And it hung over my childhood like a sword of Damocles until when I was 10, the Berlin Wall came down. Yes! And it was like this weight had been lifted. The Soviet Empire fell apart, and we seem to have these years of relative peace. Obviously, Yugoslavia fell apart. We had the Rwandan genocide, which spilled over to neighboring countries, Uganda, Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, which was Zaire at the time. Okay, it wasn't great worldwide. It wasn't like the 90s were a time of beautiful, harmonious world peace. But, however, the threat to the entire planet of nuclear war had been taken away, had been taken off the table. So while these civil wars that were going on were incredibly, heartbreaking, just horrific, anyone who's seen Welcome to Sarajevo or Hotel Rwanda, I mean, you go to Rwanda, you go to Sierra Leone, you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to talk about what happened. You don't bring it up in conversation because it's left such a scar on the psyche of those countries. So I'm not diminishing the anguish that people went through in those years up to Trump's election, and obviously later on in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, etc. What I'm talking about is this idea that this could be it. Every day could be your last because of the lunatics in charge, which it pretty much was through most of the 20th century. And we haven't had that in the 21st century, not to the same extent, not worldwide. And it's just, I'm really worried about the next 2 months and what it's going to bring. And Tom's saying Biden's press conferences are so refreshing. They really are, Tom. I mean, it's just like the grown-ups are back, thank God. And I feel myself just getting calmer. But the amount of mental anguish that Trump has caused, and it's like these fuckers who whinge about lockdown and whinge about wearing a mask, like Farage, Nazi Farage, they're the people who are saying, oh, right, okay, yeah, well, we're really worried about the mental health of people in the country suddenly. And we're really worried about the effect on the economy. These are the people who don't give a fat flying fuck about the economy when it comes to Brexit. They don't give a fat flying fuck about the mental health toll that Brexit is causing the majority of this nation. People who don't know if they're going to have a job next year because of it. People don't know if they're going to be able to afford food next year because of it. I just retweeted a thread by Howard Goddall, who's the guy who wrote the theme tune to Red Dwarf, Blackadder, QI, Vicar of Dibley, a bunch of others. He also did some really good TV shows, one about the Beatles, and it was about the making of Sgt. Pepper's, and it was fantastic. I really recommend it. But he did a big thread on what it's going to be like trying to be a musician, especially a musician perhaps in an orchestra, and tour the EU next year. It's going to be nigh on impossible unless you're like seriously the best and no one can play the violin quite like you. They're going to get someone from Ireland or Spain or France or Germany or any of the other 23 other countries of the EU over you because you're going to be too expensive because you've got to pay for your instruments. You've got to pay. So you got to pay to get a work permit, which you never had to do before. Yay, work permit to us. So, back to Trump though. All of what he's doing at the moment is exactly what dictators do when they're segueing from a democracy. They've been elected, they've committed crimes in office, and now they don't want to be out of office. And we see this pattern repeated again and again and again, and it needs to stop. We need to stop having this stupid rule in which the leaders are above the law, where Dominic Cummings is above the law, where Matt Hancock is above the law. It can't go on. In 1215, they signed the Magna Carta, which all these meatheads love to go on and on and on about. The Magna Carta, the only thing it says, doesn't say that you have to open your pub in a pandemic. It does say that no one's above the law. And that should be the case, but it isn't. If you're rich enough, if you're powerful enough, if you're Lord Lucan enough, if you're Ernest Marples enough, you can do what the hell you like and get away with it and run off to some tax-free haven somewhere like Switzerland or Monaco or I don't know. Where did Lord Lucan end up after murdering his nanny? Was it? I think it went to Kenya. Anyway, I'm going to read some of your messages now. I'm just saying, remember seeing Reagan and Gorbachev signing the START treaty and feeling the relief that the Cold War going away. This is from John Barleycorn. Then Trump came along and ripped that treaty up. Yeah. Trump also stepped away from the climate change agreement. He also stepped away from the Iran nuclear deal, which was just ridiculous because they spent so long negotiating it. It was a good deal for America. And he just got rid of it because Obama had negotiated it and he just wanted to ruin everything Obama did. Biden said he's going to go straight back in there. Trump has taken them out of the WHO. Trump has also, these dickheads who go, oh, let's go WTO, because they don't really know what they're talking about. Well, I went to the WTO a couple of years ago and had a chat with some of the people there. I can't say who because there's some rules, Chatworth House rules or something. Chatham House? Chatsworth? I don't know. Some kind of house rules that mean you can't say who you spoke to. But basically, I got the lowdown on what was happening there. What Trump was doing was he was refusing, or he was getting the US to refuse to put in the judges that they need to be arbiters of any kind of conflicts between countries, which is what the WTO is there to do. Really, it's to mediate between countries. It's to encourage trade between nations and to encourage free trade. It's like an anti-protectionist thing where they're saying, let's put down the protection rackets, please, Mr. Trump. Meanwhile, Trump is obviously busy having trade wars with China, fomenting a lot of bad will around the world. And one of his biggest crimes, one of them, there's so many, is sucking up to Putin. He had this meeting with Putin. They had nobody else there except for him and Putin. I think they were fucking. And then, oh God, it goes through me. I made a website called Putin4Trump.com number. If you want to have a look at it, it's an erotic tale of Putin and Trump basically going at it in Russian. So you can translate it back into English if you like. I'm going to just put the link up in the this is where I just obviously don't have enough things to do already as it is. Putin4Trump.com. There you go. Anyway, so yeah, you can have a look at that later. I'm just reading Tom Monk's here. Brian, we do not need to prosecute while in office. That's not a law. It's just that's something, a memo in the Justice Department. There's no basis for it. Yeah, Biden will be a pro in the White House. I think that yeah, you have to prosecute in office. Yeah, I mean, Brian's making a point here about we should be able to prosecute people for breaking the law in office like you can with a normal person, but you can't with the president. You have to impeach them. That's your only option. And impeachment means House of Representatives. You've got you've got to get through just a simple majority through there to go to impeachment, and then they have the trial in the Senate. And I think it's got to be 60 senators to agree to actually, or 60% of the senators to actually agree to charge the president or whoever. Actually, anyone can be impeached, I think, in government. I don't think it's just a presidential thing, but the president's like obviously the most famous one. So yeah, John Barleycorn's talking about the military here. I was just about to say this. One of the most outrageous things he's done, sucking up to Putin and basically talking down NATO. Now, they hate you talking about this because, like, Trump would never admit it, but you know he keeps banging the drum for the 29 members of NATO to pay their dues into NATO. Right? It doesn't work like that. What it is if you are a NATO member, you're expected to spend 2% of either your GDP or your government spend, whatever, 2% on your military at least, okay? So depending on the size of the country, you spend more or less depending on the size of your country. And as a result of this, because Germany is such a big country, they're spending, and they're so rich, they're going to wind up having the biggest army in the world after America very soon, if the way they're carrying on. They don't need an army that big. But this is the thing. This 2% thing is this idea that we're all paying 2% into a pot. We're not. We are looking after our own army. It's just that it's got to be 2% of our money needs to go to our armed services. Do you know who put this in? Do you know who pushed for this and got everyone in NATO to agree it? I can't be bothered waiting for the answer, but it's Obama. It wasn't Trump. It was Obama who pushed for that to get NATO members to spend more on their military. So if anything did happen, they'd have more military people to go in and help their members, the fellow members. And what Trump did was he undermined NATO at every opportunity. His America First thing was basically America first, Europe last. It was America first, Russia second, then probably North Korea, and then China, where he had a secret bank account. This guy is like when someone says, "Oh, I quite like Trump," you sort of left to God. It's hard to just know what to say because there's so many bad things that this man has done. I mean, partying with the most notorious pedophile in the last 50 years in America, partying with him at parties where we know that children were assaulted. I'm putting that mildly. That should be enough. That should be enough. Forget about anything else. That should be enough. But it's not. There's more to it. There's the fact he bragged about sexually assaulting women. There's the fact that he lied under oath, basically saying, I didn't do. He is everything wrong with society. He exemplifies it, and it's really interesting to see how many people who consider themselves Christians follow him and think that he's the Messiah. And you're like, if you think he's the Messiah, mate, you really need to read the Bible again. Oh, you can't read? Oh, fascinating. Yeah, Andreas Walsh just points out that the 2% GDP spending goal is not even for now. It's for a few years in the future. You're slightly incorrect about Germany. The Germans admit they cannot defend themselves. Yeah, well, I mean, after Second World War, Japan and Germany weren't allowed to have particularly big standing armies. They only allowed them for, enough for internal defense and civil defense and stuff. And don't forget, for a long time, it was American forces and British forces in West Germany and Russian forces in East Germany, sort of doing the role of a military in that country. And some have said, well, look at the economies of Japan and Germany without wasting all this money on guns and ammunitions that they never shoot or use, or bombs or whatever. They've put it into, education and industry and finance. I don't know. It's one of those arguments. But yeah, Betty Biscuit saying, Trump's tested every system to destruction. Tom's saying in the US, we don't need an army as big as we have. It's true. I think America's got something like the biggest army in the world, and it's bigger than the next 26 put together, and 25 of them are allies. It's just bonkers. The amount of money that's given from the taxpayer to the military is quite outrageous. And if that money was, a small part of it was siphoned off to healthcare or education, America would be in a much better place at the moment. Infrastructure. America is really screwed at the moment when it comes to its infrastructure. We're talking roads, bridges, tunnels, levees, all this kind of stuff. Civil engineering has just gone, it's just been taken off the agenda because Trump wants to build a fucking wall. And so another disaster like what happened in New Orleans with Hurricane Katrina, it could be just around the corner because we don't know what's going to break next and how many people's deaths it's going to result in. And that's something to really, really worry about. T's just said tenfold the number of nukes in the rest of the world combined. Yeah, but these nukes, I don't think they've been renewed for God knows how long. They're still working off old 5.25-inch floppy disks, which is like, oh my God, it's like the launch codes. Put them into this old processor and sweep out all the dust out the back of it, and then you can launch your missiles and hope they go the right way. Cliff's saying, I do worry about the damage Trump could do between now and January. Biden will have a massive task to get some equilibrium. Yeah, and this is the problem. I mean, at the beginning, it looked like there were some GOP senators who were happy to basically say, yeah, Biden's won. But then Trump closed ranks. He got on the phone. He said, no, we're not saying anyone's won, except for Trump. If they want to say that, that's fine. But yeah, and this guy's like, when Rudy Giuliani was told that Trump had won, he says, "Oh, who says the media? Oh, the media!" And you're just like, yeah, that's what happens every time you have an election. It's projected by the media. I mean, basically, they count up the votes and they get to a point where the other person couldn't possibly win, even if they got 100% of the votes that were left to count, and they can call it. He can call it. He's yeah, okay. And it's interesting that Trump doesn't want them to recount the ballots in any of the states that he won by a whisker. It's all the ones where he lost. And at the same time, last week you had people down in Arizona outside the ballot office going, count the votes, and they're like inside going, yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. We're counting the votes. Yeah, thanks for the cheerleaders. Score a goal. Football. Yeah, great. Okay, is that what we're supposed to be doing? And then meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, a bunch of rednecks were hanging out outside counting officers saying, stop the count. And it's just like, they're on the same side. They're the same people. And all they want to do is undermine democracy. And this is a serious issue because there are 193 members of the UN, and over half of them are democracies now. Various types of democracies. You have a parliamentary democracy, like what you have, I guess, in New Zealand or Iceland. You have a constitutional monarchy, like what we have here, and Spain and Netherlands and Denmark, where basically you have a head of state and then you have a government, which is generally pretty much the same as a parliamentary system. Then you have a more extreme version of that, not of a monarchy, but of sort of direct democracy in Switzerland, where they have lots and lots and lots of referendums or referenda. I'm never sure which one that is. And then you have the presidential system, which unfortunately so many countries in South America, Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, across Asia, if they go for a model of democracy, they tend to go for these fucking presidential models based on the USA. It's actually a really good episode of The West Wing where one of the guys, Josh or whatever his name is, he has a big speech about this, about, Americans think that their system is the best in the world and the best that could ever be. America's system was devised in the 1780s and it hasn't been updated. All of the 50 states of America have constitutions of their own. They have all been updated over the last 200 years because things change. The big constitution, the one that manages all of the states, even though 37 of them were, 37 of them weren't even part of America then, they're dictated by the constitution of the 13 original states. And that is just like, okay, that sounds a bit wacky because things have massively changed. And obviously the constitution allowed for slavery. It allowed for a system of apartheid, effectively, in the United States. It allowed for women to have no rights, not the right to vote. It allowed for a lot of corruption in government, as we're seeing in various governments over the years. And it's not a perfect document by any stretch of the imagination. And anywhere else, they would have updated it by now. In the UK, we don't have a written constitution, and that comes with problems of its own. So in the US, you can amend the constitution. I mean, for God's sake, they amended the constitution to ban alcohol for a few years. So it is possible to do. But I think the last amendment was, 1973, the Equal Rights Amendment. Someone can fix me there. It got through. It got through Congress. It got signed off by the president, and they were just waiting for the states to sign off on it. And something like over half the states need to sign up for it, and like 24 have. So basically, they need 2 more states to sign up to the Equal Rights Amendment, which was drafted back in 1973. And finally, 50 years later, they might have an amendment to the Constitution to enshrine the equal rights of women. Women. Not necessarily gay people, not necessarily, transgender people. It's fraught. It's a fraught issue. Tom Monk has just pointed out that Democrats have been left to clean up the mess of GOP presidents for years, all the way back to Nixon. I think all the way back beyond there. What about who was in charge when it was when Prohibition came in? Was it Calvin Coolidge or was Hoover? It might have been Hoover. One of them was just an absolute bloody monster. I think he was one of the one-term presidents, perhaps. But yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of these messes that they've left other people to clean up. Look at Nixon. Look at the mess that George W. Bush left, having squandered all the goodwill that people felt towards America around the world in the wake of 9/11, all the sympathy and that was given, and he managed to squander all that by acting like an absolute fucking yahoo and invading Iraq that had absolutely nothing to do with 9/11 whatsoever, on a wafer thin pretense. And then obviously the banking crisis happened, because of people in charge pulling back regulations. You have regulators to make sure that these kind of things don't happen. But otherwise, everyone wants to make a quick buck. They will do what they can up to the point that it becomes illegal. So if it's legal, they'll keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, and building up the pressure until the dam bursts, and bloody hell, the Lehman Brothers have gone out of business. Wow. I mean, look, this is what happens. There's a run on the bank. The National Rock is nationalized. Northern Rock. Northern Rock is national. National Rock is northernized. And the Bank of Scotland, was it the Royal Bank of Scotland or the Bank of Scotland? One of them. Bailed out by the taxpayer to the tune of billions. And this is a situation where we always seem to be left mopping up the mess that these absolute cretins and yahoos do, cause while they're in office. And we have this with the Conservatives right now. This is exactly what they're doing while they're in office. They are giving all these contracts to their mates, knowing that they're never going to go to court for it. They're never going to go to jail for robbing, embezzlement, which is effectively what it is. If I worked in a bar and my mate came in and I poured him a free pint and the manager saw me do it, I'd be in a load of shit. But he's me mate. I don't care. You're not supposed to give them stuff that's the bars, That's just the way it is. You maybe give them 10% off, but don't give them a free fucking pint. But when the manager's not watching. But this is the thing, that we've got too many of these crooks, and it's not just in Britain, it's not just in the US. Obviously, we've got Bolsonaro, we've got Erdogan, we've got Duterte in the Philippines, and then, we've got the king of them all, Putin in Russia, who is the world's biggest gangster. He is a gangster chief of a gangster country in which doesn't give a shit about international law, doesn't give a shit about sovereignty of the nations around it, as we saw with the invasion of Georgia when South Ossetia and Abkhazia were invaded and annexed by the Russians. And then we saw it again in 2014 with Ukraine, with the annexation of Crimea. And the ongoing border skirmishes in the east of Ukraine. The fact that they shot down the Russian guy with a bloody rocket launcher or whatever, shot down a Malaysian passenger jet, and nothing's happened. I was having this argument with one of my friends a while ago, and I was like, "What happened after Salisbury? What happened after the poisoning? Did someone go to jail? Did something happen?" They said, "Oh, well, they withdrew all the diplomats. All the Russians were all kicked out of the country." And I was like, "Oh, good. So they were stopped from using the internet then?" Yeah. Oh no. Okay. So they continue having these bot farms and troll farms, and putting all this nonsense on the internet and just copy and pasting it so they get up the search engines and up the algorithms on Twitter and Facebook. Nothing to stop that. No. Should we have an investigation into what Russia did in the referendum? No, not even going to look at it. Not even going to look at it. And you're like, oh my God, we've all been there, haven't we? When you've got bugger all money left in your bank account and you go to the cash machine and it says, do you want to check how much money you've got? And you're like, no, I don't even want to look at it. I'm just going to pretend that everything's fine. It's awesome. Everything is wonderful. And I'm not paying 29% APR on this debt. I get that. But when it comes to a functioning government, and it looks like our democracy has been damaged and has been manipulated by a foreign hostile power. And don't forget, Russia's been our enemy for the last fucking 70 years. I mean, this isn't new. This isn't something where we're like, oh my God, I thought they were our buddies now. But it turns out they were trying to do us over all the time. It's Russia, even before our brief flirtation with, Stalin as a means to an end in World War II. The Great Game in Afghanistan and Central Asia, that ran from the 1830s to the First World War. I mean, so in the last 200 years, Russia's been our enemy more than it's not been our enemy. And I'm not talking about the Russian people, I'm talking about the Russian government and the people in charge. So even when it's Queen Victoria's grandson in charge of the country, it's still always had that edge to it. It's always been a country that has not seen eye to eye in terms of wanting peace and prosperity for both of our nations in perpetuity. It's always had a bit of an edge to it, even when we were allies for short periods throughout wars and things. So yeah, I'm very disheartened by the way that not Trump, by the way. I expected this of Trump. He can't dishearten me because my expectations of him are so fucking low. Whatever. But the people in the Republican Party, the cowards in the Republican Party who won't stand up to him and say, right, okay, you lost. You absolutely lost. You can't say that the media is lying and the media doesn't get to call the election. The media calls the election. That's what it's done for decades. When he won in 2016, he didn't wait for every single ballot to be counted in every single county in every single state in America, because the media projected that he was going to win. When all of those ballots were finally counted, he was going to win. He had an insurmountable lead in the Electoral College, so they called it. And he took to the podium and said, yeah, I won. And Hillary Clinton conceded, even though she felt like she had been cheated by Russian and Republican cheating. Basically, she had a point when it came to the fact that she won the popular vote by 3 million, which seems a bit unfair that, because of the Electoral College, she lost. And voter suppression, the fact that Cambridge Analytica and Facebook were in cahoots, selling data of people who they would then target with micro-targeted ads on their Facebook feed, saying that Hillary Clinton was a vampire and living on their street, and this was all on Channel 4 a few weeks ago, wasn't it, when they finally got the Cambridge Analytica data. And they were going through it. They were sat with a woman. They said, so it says here that you're X many years old. Yeah, that's right. And it says that you work here. Yeah, that's right. And this is your name. That you go on holiday. And it was everything she put on her Facebook page. Everything. So they'd seen that. They've gone, she's probably going to vote Democrat if she votes. So they targeted her with anti-Hillary stuff so she wouldn't bother voting. And you do that to just enough people. Because don't forget, a lot of the states that Donald Trump flipped from Obama, he only won by a razor-thin majority. Pennsylvania, I think it was 0.4%. It was really small. You don't need to flip that many people, or just get them not to vote. Even better. So the Republicans attacked Clinton for waiting 24 hours to succeed. Yeah, Brian's just made this point about when Clinton did concede. I mean, I could see her point. I could see why she was like, but hang on, there's stuff going on here. The guy who I was up against implored a hostile foreign nation to hack my emails. This guy, he broke the law before he even got into office while he was on the campaign trail. And he did it in full view of everyone. It's not like something that came out afterwards, like the Stormy Daniels payoff money. Oh my God. But we saw him do it there and then. And there was dodgy stuff going on. People knew there was dodgy stuff going on with Cambridge Analytica and these companies basically troll farms. If you watch South Park in 2016, it was all about troll farms. There was a big thing going through it. I think it was 2016. I don't know if South Park's just really prophetic, or maybe I watched it in 2017. I'm getting it mixed up. Troll farms were a thing, though, in 2016. It's not like they took us by surprise. The way that Twitter and Facebook allowed Donald Trump to just lie and cheat his way to the White House is disgraceful. And Biden, in comparison, has just been... Cheers, Wayne. Wayne just pointed out that I've kept him a half an hour really well again. Clinton, she had such a point saying that Donald Trump had behaved reprehensibly during the election, the election period, which seemed to go on forever in 2016. It actually went on from 2015. It went on for over, I think it was like 18 months of it that we got. God, it was painful. And then at the end of it, the bad guy won. But yeah, compared with Trump and the way he behaved, Biden has been exemplary. yeah, he's made mistakes in the past, and he's owned up to it. He said, "Yeah, I shouldn't have drafted that bill in 1994 that led to a record number." He's admitted his mistakes. He said, "Look, he's been in politics for 50 years, more than 50 years, and so things are going to go in the same way that Hillary Clinton was attacked for things that she did in the past, but it was stuff that was so wafer thin, like Benghazi, which I mentioned the other day." 11 inquiries. It was a terrible disaster. It's a tragedy, but it wasn't necessarily, something that Hillary Clinton directly organised. She got on the phone and go, "Hey, is that the terrorists in Libya? Could you go and kill the ambassador, please?" And her emails, which were boring. I mean, that was their only crime, just being really, really boring. But compared with that, I mean, they've got nothing on Biden. All they've got is maybe that his son might have done something in Ukraine, which Trump's been fishing for since last summer before last, because he made that phone call to the president of Ukraine. Another thing he's done that's just so illegal and so wrong on so many levels, ringing up the leader of a foreign power and saying, "I've got all this money. It's been signed off by Congress, but you're not going to get it unless you get some dirt on my opponent's son." I mean, and then when he was questioned about it, he said it was a perfect phone call. He didn't even lie. He just said, yeah, I did that. Give a shit. You're not going to do anything about it. You can't do anything about it. I'm the president. And he's right. So as Wayne has pointed out, that I haven't stuck to my half-hour rule. Again, I'm going to just have a quick look through some of the messages. Tom saying if I could afford it, I'd move to Europe. Yeah, if I could go and live in an EU country, I would have by now. It's unbelievable that any modern democracy should have an electoral system where the winner of the popular vote is not necessarily the winner of the election. I know, it's absolutely bonkers. It just makes no sense at all. Maybe in a parliamentary system, let's try and work this out. The parliamentary system, a first past the post system means that the Tories can only get 43% of the votes, but 80 more seats than everybody else. That is fundamentally unfair. But at the same time, it's not like the other parties got more votes than them. And we see this time and time again. I mean, I don't know if that ever has been a case in the UK, and correct me if I'm wrong, but where one party's actually got nationally less votes than another party and ended up with more seats. It might have happened, but I don't think it has. And that idea where 3 million less people vote for somebody and they get the job is just wrong. There's no, you can't really defend that. You can go, "Oh, well, it's the system, innit?" You can change it. That's what amendments are for. The Americans are very fond of their Second Amendment, aren't they? It's an amendment. It wasn't in the original Constitution. It was amended. But it's really difficult to amend the Constitution, so you got to think of clever ways around it. But while I'm glad that Biden has won, the Democrats haven't done very well in the House. They've lost seats, and they've done terribly in the Senate. Everyone expected them to take the majority, or at least 50-50 the Senate, which would give the vice president, who will be Kamala Harris, the deciding vote. But it's going to hinge on these two runoff elections in Georgia on January the 5th. Okay, so they have a weird system in Georgia, as best as I can understand it. Anyone can run to be a senator, and then if the percentage is too close to the top, they have another election where it's just the top two people. No one else is allowed to get a vote in for anyone else. And they've got two runoffs in Georgia. And if the Democrats win both of those, which is very unlikely, I'm sorry to say, they'll have 50-50. If they win one, lose one, it'll be 49-51. If they lose both of them, it'll be 48-52 to the Republicans, as far as I'm aware. Brian's just saying requires a majority vote to win. We do have primaries in Georgia. Just one was a special election, so I guess that's where someone's died or been beheaded or whatever. Hunting accident. Chubai is saying the Second Amendment was based on a 17th century English law. I could do a whole episode of this on the American gun control, gun policy, and gun culture. It's what I wrote my final year dissertation on back in 2000, and nothing's changed over the last 20 years, except the number of people who are killed by guns in America has gone up from 33,000 to 38,000. Nice. Meanwhile, the number of people killed in England and Wales over the same period is usually about 7. So I'm just having a quick look. Don't forget the timed email releases from WikiLeaks synced to Trump's scandals by Mike Pompeo and Trump's second cousin, Julian Assange. Yes, Eskil. When I see leftists defending Julian Assange, I'm like, he helped put Trump in power. He helped Brexit happen. Him and his mates with Nigel Farage, for Christ's sake. Nigel Farage went to visit him in the Ecuadorian embassy. I have no time for Julian Assange. I don't know if he's a rapist or not. That's not for me to say, but I know he's a cunt. Stephen says, maybe I'm being thick, but I don't see how that's possible in the first past the post system. Isn't the party with the most votes always going to win, even if it's by 1 vote? No, Stephen, what I was saying is, say, for example, there was a constituency where 100% of the people in that constituency voted for Labour, and then the Tories got in everywhere else in the country, but because 100% of that constituency, or several constituencies, voted for Labour, then the actual votes of the people all added together came to more than what the Conservatives got, but the Conservatives were in power because they won in each constituency. They won more constituencies by only 51%, whereas Labour might have won a few less constituencies, but have won them with like 100% of the votes. I mean, that would never happen, but you get my meaning. And that could produce, theoretically, it could produce a system in which the Tories are in power because they got the most MPs, but Labour got the most votes nationally. And I don't think that's happened ever before, but it could under our stupid FPTP system. COVID has helped and kept locked indoors all the mass shooters. Well, that's the thing, Brian. The mass shooters, they get in the newspapers a lot, but they're not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is, after suicide, is domestic violence. If you own a gun in your house, you're 7 times more likely to be killed with a gun because people have fights and they get drunk and they've got a deadly weapon in the house, which is really, really useful for murdering things that don't need to be dead. Whether that's a squirrel or an elephant or your wife or your husband, and it's quite brutal actually. I read a thing. It'd be great to dig it out and go through it, and it was about how someone had said that the crime rate in the UK was worse than the US, and they went through every single stat, and the only thing that the UK had worse. This is like per head of population, right? When it came to murder, the UK was like 1 in 100,000, whereas the US was 5.5 in 100,000. It's like 5 times as many. And then when you looked at things like violent crime, robbery, burglary, it was actually higher in the United States, even though people say, oh, I've got a gun and I stopped burglaries because of the guns, and we don't have burglaries here, but actually they have more than we do in the UK. The only one category of violent crime that was higher in the UK was knife crime, which you notice that people always pick on when they want to say that the UK is not very good. You know, you can't go to London because of all the knife crime. The knife crime will get you, and the actual knife crime that we have, it's bad for us, but you wouldn't even notice it in America next to all the gun crime. Anyway, I'm getting massively off the subject here, talking about guns. I want to get back onto Trump. So, what do you think is going to happen? I think it's a coup. I honestly think that it's a coup. I think that Trump is going to cling on as much as he can. He's going to try and get the military on side. He's going to barricade himself in the White House, surround himself with people he knows won't drag him out of the White House, and there's either going to be a battle to get him out of there or what? I can't see how this has a good ending. I can't see how this ends with Trump going, okay, then I'll step down and go to jail, because he must know that he's going to go to jail or live his life in exile, looking over his shoulder for when, you know, the government of the country he's in negotiates an extradition agreement with the United States, and his arse gets extradited out of there and back to the US to stand trial for his crimes. In a way that a lot of dictators, Manuel Noriega of Panama, remember him? He was mates with Pablo Escobar of Colombia, not the president, the drug dealer. And he's served time, I think, in America, and now he's serving time in a French jail for his crimes. Yeah, that's the sort of way that Trump might go down, is he'll try and run away somewhere, and he's a bit thick, so maybe he'll go somewhere that he doesn't understand, has an extradition treaty with the United States. Or maybe someone could give him some bad advice on purpose. That'll be really good. Alex says, I think you're right. Brian's saying the Constitution is very clear. 1201, Biden becomes POTUS. That is very true. However, this is on January the 20th. Trump stops being president. No matter what happens from now on, Trump legally, in the eyes of the American Constitution, stops being president because he hasn't won an election to be president. And we were talking about this because if he tried to postpone the election somehow because of COVID, it wouldn't make any difference. What would happen on January the 20th if there hadn't been an election is he would stop being the president, and he wouldn't start being the president again until he had won an election. And so Nancy Pelosi, who is the majority leader in the House of Representatives, she would probably become president so long as she won re-election. Oh no, she wouldn't win re-election, would she? Because if her seat was up, I don't know. And then it goes into these weird arcane rules where it's like the oldest person in the majority party, and it was just some random bloke that no one had heard of would end up becoming president if there were no elections, and all these people would lose their jobs and have to wait until the elections until they got their jobs back. And basically, Trump will stop being president on January the 20th, no matter what, legally speaking. But then that's like saying, I'm going to get kicked out of my house on Thursday because I haven't paid the rent, and then just staying in the house for as long as I want until actually someone comes and physically pulls me out of the house. Now, if I built a big wall around my house and I'm surrounded by my own private militia of lunatics, it's going to be a bit difficult to get me out of the house. So what I would do if I was Biden right now, I would set up an alternative government. I would say, right, well, he's talking nonsense. I'm going to set myself up with the help of the Democratic Party and party donors, because this stuff is expensive and Trump isn't releasing the funds to do the transition properly, and set up basically a government and start negotiating with countries around the world as the legitimate government of the United States, the recognized government of the United States. And I'll tell you what, there'll be a few countries that won't recognize him as the actual president, and it'll be it'll be Brazil, it'll be Russia, it'll be the Philippines. I mean, you know, it's pretty obvious who's not going to do it. Tom Monk's saying Trump will not barricade himself into the White House. The Secret Service will move him out. I don't know. Will it end up like that though? I mean, if he tells the Secret Service to leave, if he gets rid of a Secret Service detail, like, who do they answer to? Is there someone above the president? So the president says to the Secret Service people, I don't want you in this room. I don't want you in this building. Surely as their boss, they have to do what he says. So if he says, I want you to all leave, and they can't stay there forever, I guess he can say, hey, why don't you go out to the shops and get me a newspaper? And then as soon as they're gone, lock the door and have his own private militia guard him in the White House, which is what it looks like he's trying to do. But I think a lot of you have got a lot of faith in the Secret Service. Are the Secret Service not being employed by Trump until, not being employed, but don't they work for Trump until January the 20th? Isn't that the way it works? Brian saying, please stop going down these rabbit holes. What? Okay, Brian H. McAllister, PhD. What rabbit holes? I mean, I'm asking the question, what do you think is going to happen? And I'm trying to think of plausible scenarios, because none of us know what's going to happen, I guess, except for Trump. And I don't even think he knows what's going to happen at the moment. They'll leave a trail of hamburgers outside his bedroom door to tempt him out. Yeah, but who's going to get in? And the 25th Amendment, Wayne, they can only enact that with the help of the Republicans, and the Republicans ain't going to do that. Be likely be DC police with a trespassing complaint. I think that the White House is federal land. I don't think the DC police have any jurisdiction there. Angry mob. I think that there will be an angry mob around the White House. I think that's what Trump wants, but he's going to have his own private militia. There's enough people out there who are absolutely agog at Trump and love him more than they love their own children, and will happily get their AR-15s and go down to the White House and protect him against anyone. If he sends his Secret Service detail away, which he can do because he's in charge of them, tells them not to come back, I don't think they can disobey him. There must be some kind of legislation in place in case the president goes mad. Yeah, Patrick has just asked that. Is there some kind of legislation? Yes, there's the 25th Amendment, which says that if president is not capable of serving his duties as the president of the United States, he can be removed. But it requires the approval of his cabinet, with people he's put into place, and they're all backing him. They're all saying, no, we're going to stand by our man on this. And that none of them have an independent thought in their head. If it was just, but Brian says, this is what's going to happen. There are laws in place that are going into effect with or without his approval. It's already happening. After the death of JFK, procedures are in place to ensure a new POTUS is installed. But yeah, after the death of JFK, you didn't have people saying in the Republican Party, or no, the Democrats would be a better example. You did have people in the Democrat Party basically breaking the law and saying, well, we've got the majority here, so we can do what we like, which is what's happening with the Republicans at the moment. If it was just Trump on his own, yeah, fine, he's fucked. Like, you know, they'll take him out. But it's not Trump on his own. It's Trump and Mike Pompeo and Mitch McConnell and all the little lizard people that Trump has working for him. It's all of those. And this is a problem when you have a system in which the president is not only above the law, the president appoints all the people around him. And that is wrong. I think the people around the president should be elected and should be answerable to the electorate if they screw up in office. But that's not the way it is. It's just literally the friends of the president. It's supposed to be people who are qualified, but it ends up being the friends of the president get these cushy roles in the executive, which I think is wrong. I think it's wrong. Nobody said, yeah, Chubb Eyes just said no one said JFK wasn't dead, which is effectively what's happened here. So JFK's been shot dead in front of the entire world's media, and it's massive shock. And on Air Force One, Lyndon B. Johnson is there, and he's about to be sworn in, and then all these people say, oh, no, he's not dead. No, I've seen his corpse. He's definitely dead. No, he's not dead, and you can't swear on the Bible until we've had an investigation to make sure that JFK is actually dead. And in the meantime, you know, that's more kind of what's going on here. So I'm saying I'm not sure Trump comes back to DC after the holidays. I don't think he'll leave. I don't think he'll leave DC. I don't think he'll. Because if he does, then obviously the White House is there for the next administration to say, okay, we need to do something about this. Brian said they announced they will return with their guns every week until Trump is made president. Jesus Christ. Wolf Hybrid Den Live is saying, Graham, do more travel vlogs after lockdown, UK vlogs around the UK, like going to Stonehenge and Cheddar Gorge and the Devil's Causeway. No, the Giant's Causeway and things like that. Yeah, I could do that. That'd be fun. On the 20th, I need some money first, though. Get me some money, and then I'll do what you want. I'm like your performing, traveling political monkey. You just give me some money, and I'll do it. That's exactly the problem we have with Bozo, DePiffle, and Trump. It's assumed they're good actors and they have the nation's best interests at heart. Stephen's just said that. You're absolutely 100% on the money there. These institutions and our constitutions and our the way politics works is it just assumes that people are going to act honorably. And if they act dishonorably, the people around them will force them out of office. But what's happened here is you've got It's not individuals acting dishonorably. It's all of them. It's the whole lot of them. And democracy really, really does start to strain at the edges in a situation like that. Okay, so I'm going to... Vine's saying once the vote is certified on December the 12th, Biden is the legal president. Well, he's not, is he? Because he hasn't taken the oath of office. I think I thought he became president on January the 20th. But maybe we'll just continue this discussion tomorrow, because I've got to go. But thank you very much. Thanks for the comments. I think it's really good being able to interact and stuff and have a chat about these things. But I'm worried. I'm assuming that most of you are worried by your comments. Wayne saying you've done double time tonight. Have tomorrow off. All right, Mum. Basically saying bye-bye. So I'll just say bye-bye to everybody, and I'll see you again tomorrow, in which maybe I'll get around to talking about freedom of movement, which I've been saying is going to happen for a few days now. Okay, thanks very much for tuning in to Hughes at 10, and I will see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Bang on YouTube, and I'll see you then. Bye.